Hey again, friend. Have the recent storms of life dredged up old ways of thinking or behaviors that no longer work for you? Imagine living and leading your life by design rather than default. Wouldn't that feel awesome? Today's podcast gal pal, Jennifer Ledet, says you have too much opportunity before you not to go for it. Starting with a few powerful choices, you can live more intentionally and fulfilled. Oh, right. There is that messy middle of getting from where you are now to where you want to be. Jen shares some of her own ideas for managing the messy middle, including one inspired by making one of her favorite Cajun dishes, gumbo. I can't wait for you to meet her. By the way, I always ask my guests to take my quick quiz to determine their nail color persona and what their favorite nail color reveals about them. It's a fun way to get to know them before we dive into our conversation. You can take the What's My Nail Color Persona quiz too. Just go to livelikeMyNailColor.com/quiz, or you can use my handy shortcut, mynailcolorpersona.com. Answer 3 quick questions, and in your results, discover your specific nail color persona, your built-in strengths, and how to tap into those strengths when chip happens. Again, just go to mynailcolorpersona.com. Now, let's get to talking with Jen.
Tired of so much chip happening? Discouraged by so much downer news? Weary from chronic crisis? Don't let the chips keep you down. Welcome to the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast, where the tips of your fingers and toes are ready to inspire you to not give up and to keep creating the business, career, and life you want. In each episode, we flip the chip and let our fun nail color with that crazy fun name cheer us on to remember our strengths, embrace the power of choice, see life as an adventure, and know resilience is only a touch-up or change-up away. Get ready for a good time and a good laugh with your host, Mary Foley.
Welcome back. Great to be with you again. Hey, when was the last time you moved? Fun, wasn't it? It's truly one of the most stressful things you can do. We just moved a few months before COVID from a house we'd had for like 16 years to a condo. And I now call it the COVID condo. But we didn't anticipate moving just 2.5 years later. But hey, here we are. And we were already looking for a larger place. But then it became apparent that being closer to my aging parents an hour away, well, that was also in the mix. And I'm so glad we're making this additional move. But I got to say, selling and moving out of one home while you're buying and renovating another, and you're taking care of lots of clients, that's a lot. Oh, yeah. And launching this podcast. I mean, there have been moments where it has felt overwhelming, crazy, as well as exciting. Well, today's gal pal, Jennifer Ledet, knows a little about this feeling because she's had her own set of challenges and changes these past few years. And what I so admire is how she's responded and how it has propelled her, as she says, to live by design rather than default, with her Cajun-inspired flair, by the way. Let me tell you a little bit about Jen before we get talking. Jen's career of human resources director, consultant, speaker, and coach has had a thread running all the way through it of helping people be more effective and authentic in their leadership roles. However, she admits that for years she struggled to own her own authenticity, and she felt that she needed a model. She felt like I needed to have a model like other successful people had. And she felt like she had to mask her Cajun accent, although honestly, that's not really totally possible. And she also felt like she had to suppress her sassy sense of humor, which makes her so much fun. Good news is today she leans into her authentic self so she can combine everything that she's got for her highest value to her clients. Her programs focus on mastering communication, inspiring real teamwork, and amping individual influence to impact an organization's bottom line. She's the author of Lead, Follow, or Pass Me the Hot Sauce. See what I'm saying? A little bit of that sass and Cajun coming out. And she's the creator of the Women's Leadership Collective. Oh, and being from Louisiana, she's passionate about crawfish chocolate, wine, her family, especially her 3 grandbabies, and gumbo. Yeah, you think that is some kind of, soup? Oh, no, no, no. It's the name of her golden retriever. And, you can't, you gotta love a woman who has a dog named Gumbo. Jen, welcome to the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast.
Wow, Mary, thank you. I am honored to be in your stellar lineup of guest interviewees.
Stellar gal pals. I mean, why have, slackers, right? In your inner circle, or those that you know and love. Well, I appreciate you taking time to do this. And I want to dive right in. All right. Because I know we have a lot to share and talk about. And but before we get into even that, before the podcast, I asked you, like I asked all my guests, to take the quiz I came up with, which is called "What is your nail color persona?" So what did it say was your nail color persona, and did it nail you?
Well, I know this is going to be a great shocker to you because you know me, but I came out as an amazing adventurer.
Oh,
and it totally nailed me. It totally nailed me. Absolutely.
So with Amazing Adventurers, it's, that you like to change up, right? Your color, right?
Yes. Yes.
Because life is an adventure.
Yes. And I would rather stab my eyes out than wear the same color every day. And so I am constantly, I dress according to my mood. And a lot of times I want to use color to change my mood. So, and nail color included. So that all makes perfect sense.
Well, it makes perfect sense to me being around you, because your nails match either like exactly that same color, or it's this kind of complementary design. Yeah. I mean, right today we're doing this on Zoom. I can see you're in this magenta pink outfit. You got magenta pink on your nails and on your lips and on your eyeshadow. You're looking fantastic, by the way. All right, so trying to give a visual for everybody listening in audio land, there. But that's not the only look I've seen on you. So Amazing. Makes a lot of sense. But also in the quiz, it asks for your fave nail color, like the one you go to again and again, because even as an amazing adventurer, you kind of have a go-to color. So what's that color, and did it describe you? Like, did it really nail you in that way too?
Yes. I mean, my color, at the moment, like for the next 5 minutes, maybe my favorite color is magenta. So I love the combo of the pink and the purple. So when looking at the colors and what it means about you, pink is what I kind of was drawn to, but the purple resonates with me also because the description says that you're find strength in the power of transformation. And I just love that line. So I got to say, I'm riding the fence between pink and purple. What can I tell
love it. Yeah. So the pink part, is that reveals that you're warm, chatty, friendly, and fun.
That's not me at all. Not me at all. Right.
Yeah. Like so many of my guests too, because there's a tendency of having pink gals, it turns out, on fave color gals on the podcast, but also the deeper the pink color, the hotter the pink color, the chattier they are.
Well, there you go. Just gonna have to turn my mic off when time is up. That's all I can tell you.
That'd be true. But also, you know what about purple? The purple part is that reveals that you're comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah. And yes, and that is true, but that hasn't always been true for me. So it is true today. I will say that.
Well, it's paying off for your clients and for yourself as well. In life and journey, though, and your adventures, right?
Absolutely.
You obviously have, really leaned into that authenticity. And I think there's so many of us that can relate to that. So I'm glad that your nails color can spur you on. All right.
That's exactly right. It can change my mood too.
I love that, right? It's your mood. It's your experience.
That's right.
Color, right? It's just can be as simple as that. And obviously it's not like Shazam, but it starts to change our mindset and our focus.
It really does. It really does. Absolutely. I feel like it does for me.
Cool. Well, I want to ask a little bit more about the last couple of years. During the pandemic party, you have literally weathered lots of storms in southeast Louisiana in these last 2 years, including Hurricane Ida, which happened in August of 2021. And I'm willing to bet that you gleaned some insights and lessons from all that you've experienced versus like, yes, whether or not something is water worthy beyond
Yeah.
that. Could you share a little bit about what you've learned from these storms?
Sure. Well, we were hit hard by Hurricane Ida in, as you said, August of 2021, and that tends to fill up our memory. But if we cast our memory back beyond that to the summer of 2020, we had the hurricane season from hell, and I do mean that with great love and affection. So we were, my husband and I were walking on the beach on the coast of Louisiana, my happy place, Grand Isle, Louisiana, after one of those storms, and God only knows which one it was, because there were so many, who could keep track, right? But we came across this boat, and what I noticed about it is you could immediately tell that boat had not been sunk during the recent storm. In fact, you could just tell that boat had been submerged at the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico for a long, long time. It was all decayed and rotten. It's just that the storm had dredged it up and washed it ashore. And in a similar way, I think that is what has happened for a lot of people. The storm that we've been in for the past couple of years with the pandemic, the shutdown, and all of the different things we've been going through, it has really dredged up a lot of things for a lot of people, things that maybe we didn't want to confront before. It dredged up a lot of things where women in particular started to question the way they had been living and leading BC or before COVID, and they started to realize that maybe they didn't want to go back to quote unquote normal. And that's where I come in, because I help leaders to be more intentional about the way that they live and lead, and to really live and lead by design rather than default. Because a lot of us, left to our own devices, whether we want to admit it or not, tend to lapse into default mode or into autopilot, or worse, sleepwalking through life. And nobody wants that, right? This is, we have too much opportunity before us. So if we can be more intentional, I think that hitting the pause button, having that time for that introspection and that reflection was really a silver lining for a lot of people. And it's allowed them to wake up and realize that they actually have a lot more choice in how they're living than they really had realized before. So I think it's been a good thing.
It must have been wild I'm just trying to imagine you walking down the beach, and then all of a sudden you see, I can't say all of a sudden because it was huge, big enough to go, wow, almost like a beached whale. Here's this beached boat, and thinking how that it was huge. I mean, that had to be a huge storm to dredge it up from the bottom of somewhere in the Gulf, and to bring it forward, and the power and the force of that, and to go, whoa. And like you said, this is a big dredge up of the last couple of years. And, and everybody has had a different set of challenges, we've all kind of, like they say, we all had experienced the same thing, but we experienced it differently and how
Right.
our lives. But none of it's really been, or I should say, the first four, when you have a storm, it's scary, it's hard, you're not sure you're going to survive, what's going to be left when the storm is over. How do you even begin to flip the chip, as I like to say, that you can have a chip on your fingers or your toenails? And how do you flip that perspective, or how you do that in such a challenging series of circumstances from the last couple of years? Because you had more than one storm. I mean, this was a huge storm, and that dredged up the boat. But like the last 2 years, it was like, here's another one, here's another one, here's another one. And we'd have a shutdown, and then we'd have another wave of COVID, and then we'd have, a supply chain. And it was just again and again and again something.
Yeah. Well, look, Mary, I'm the first to admit that I went through my own moments of just feeling paralyzed or feeling like a deer caught in the headlights. For sure, when the shutdown began, I was just like, yeah, okay, now what? Because that meant that I was not going to be out meeting with leadership teams and C suite executive teams to help them to all row in the same direction instead of pulling against one another. It meant that I wasn't going to be going out and speaking at conferences and doing keynote presentations. It meant the end of a lot of those things. And, what I had to, the other thing was, it meant that I wasn't going to be able to have a retreat that I had booked and planned for my brand spanking new women's leadership roundtable group. So I was really, really stuck for a moment, and after some time of deep reflection, I realized that I needed to, walk my talk and do what I teach my clients to do, which is to become really curious. And I literally took my journal and posed some questions to myself. Things like, what if this pandemic, instead of this huge obstacle, became my greatest opportunity? Yeah, what would that look like? And then I started to realize, well, I've never really been a huge online or virtual facilitator or presenter, but I could still work and I could still serve my clients by doing work virtually. So what that opened up for me is that, okay, well, prior to the shutdown, I had been working more regionally. This allowed me to open and broaden my reach. And so I wasn't limited to people in my geographic area. So I had people in my women's group that were in New York and DC and Indiana and Ireland, along with my Louisiana gals. So it did broaden my reach and extend my reach. And, that just posing that question, which at first, when if somebody were to pose that question to me, I would have been like, what? Are you kidding? Are you sober? Like, are you kidding?
Maybe like before COVID, right? Before the shutdown, if they had said, hey, well, what about, there is this virtual technology and platform. Well, why don't you just open it up to a broader audience? In fact, you and I had some of that conversation.
Yes.
You were like, I don't like it. I mean, I do it when I have to. And
yes.
Necessary. I don't feel the connection. So what was different then in your perspective on that when you're now in the middle of the storm called the pandemic?
Well, it was a matter of go virtual or go home. It was like,
you wait a minute, you were at home. What do you mean? You were at home?
I was locked up at home. No, it was a matter of I either serve my clients and I do so in a virtual platform or I don't serve them at all. So that became a no-brainer. And the beauty of it was, if you will, was that I had some time to do it with my training wheels on. So I got to get really comfortable with it during a time when people were very forgiving and people were very understanding. And so there were a lot of pluses and positives that came from doing that for me personally. It really allowed me to get comfortable in front of a camera more and to just focus on serving and, to heck with if I'm having a bad hair day, it just became about how can I serve? And that is a really fantastic focus to get you out of your oh woe is me, mindset.
Yeah.
So it was a plus.
Well, I know today you're very comfortable with it, and you're even doing keynotes, kind of like in mini workshops virtually, like with Amazon and the women leaders there. And, now you figured out your background, you got your lighting, you got, and I say all that because these were real concerns at first about how do I still come across as professional, right? I love what you said about you were figuring out while so many others were. And so there was a lot more forgiveness, right?
Yes.
And fast forward 2 years, think about that's 2 years of experience figuring out just to connect in the virtual realm. And that's, I know everything that I just picked up on was about, how you look and how you feel, but ultimately it's how you connect.
Yeah.
So today, do you feel like that you can connect uh, as well? I don't know, even better, but like, is that a problem now today?
Absolutely. I feel a strong connection with my clients. I do all of my coaching virtually through Zoom. I love the video platform. I love that it can, in a lot of ways, be more intimate than being in person because we're not worried about other things that are distractions. And I feel like I feel a very strong connection with the virtual platform. And I'm very thankful for technology that allows us to do that. It has really changed the way that I work. And it's allowed me to be more intentional because, as you know, family is first for me, and that's a priority. And getting on planes, trains, and automobiles to go out and serve clients. Well, I do now that we're back open, I'm doing more of that than I was during the last 2 years, but it's a choice now. And I can still serve lots of people without having to get on planes, trains, and automobiles. And that is something I really appreciate.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking of the fact that, prior to so many people being comfortable with and set up to do
Right.
virtual connection and using this technology, it was almost, for most part, particularly the work that you were doing, it was required. If I'm going to do this work, I have to travel and show up. I've got
Right.
to go to the client and, do a leadership development, retreat, or I've got to go to that conference. And there's still some of that today, but it's so interesting how it is, like you said, a choice. But getting from like pre-pandemic world to now, I don't even want to call it post-pandemic if we're completely out of it, but just this different space, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a messy middle, and there has been a messy middle, right? I mean,
That's putting it nicely.
it is right, exactly. We could use words that you couldn't say on another
Right.
podcast, but we're not going there. But that middle from where you are to where you want to be, because everyone listening and including ourselves in this conversation, we're at a different place now, but we're also looking ahead and going where we want to be in 6 months, where we want to be in this year, or even, a couple of years, whether it's our business, our career, our personal life, our family, there's that the women who love this podcast and the idea of living like their nail color are just not sitting around, quote, painting their nails only, right? They're using that as a way to get their life done in the way they want. So I want to talk about this messy middle.
Yeah.
And you've worked with a lot of women one-on-one on this. In particular, you've also helped some teams, and you've had your own life. So what are your tips for managing the messy middle?
Well, you know that being from South Louisiana, what is our Cajun staple is gumbo.
That's not your dog. That's not
my dog. This is the actual Cajun dish, our gumbo, our soup. And, if the temperature drops below 70 degrees, may I have an envie for gumbo, which is a craving for gumbo. And that's what we joke about in South Louisiana. But when you go to cook a gumbo, you're going to use what we call the Holy Trinity: onion, celery, and bell pepper. And as you know, when you start chopping that onion, and as you peel back the layers of that onion, your eyes are going to start to water. And I cry like a baby, mascara running down my face, the whole 9 yards. It's ridiculous. But you got to go through that messy middle, so that once those onions are chopped, and you throw them into that roux, oh, girl, there's nothing like the smell of the Holy Trinity smothering down in a roux. So once you get past that messy middle, you're going to end up with a really delicious dish at the end. And that's what we have to remember, is that the messy middle is always going to be required to get that awesome result at the end. So some of the things that I like to tell my clients and work with my clients on is developing some practices that work for you. And for me, one of the things that I immediately go to in these challenging circumstances is, being a Christian, I'm going to double down on my spiritual practice. Okay. So I have my morning routine, which I kind of joke about, but it's starting to stretch into mid-morning some days, and that's okay. But I use my prayer time as a time. I say it's my time to talk to God. My meditation is time to listen to God. And I just feel off kilter if I don't get that in the morning. It helps me to stay grounded. But you have to find what works for you. Another thing that I really feel strongly about is a journaling practice. And I always make it a point to list the things that I am grateful for. And I think it's really important to remember that what you focus on grows. So I want to focus on the things that I'm appreciating and value and that I'm grateful for. I would even go so far as to suggest making what I call your excitement list. What are you really excited about? Sometimes you gotta kind of really think hard about that, but that's okay, because you come up with that list, and that's gonna get your that's gonna get you revved up for your day. Getting excited about something.
And by the way, so I was saying earlier about how we've been moving, right? And so we bought this one house and we've been renovating it. One of the things we've done is to take up all the floors, like take up the carpet.
Yeah.
And we decided to put in hardwood and then some carpet here and there. So anyway, I've never done that. I mean, I don't know why. Just whether I already had a house that I bought in, it was either a new construction, got to pick it out, or I bought a house that someone had been in, and I like the floors, right? So I never really changed it up in any significant way on the floors. And talk about a ground up kind of a thing, right? It's what you want. And it was somewhat arduous, just the whole process. Okay, the picking.
Oh God, yes.
But the messy middle was a mess taking them up, and then we had to wait for them to get reinstalled. But when they got installed, I was so excited.
Yes.
There was a part of me that kept looking back going, okay, how's this going to look? How's this going to look like? I would imagine it. They even had a website where I could go and I could take a picture of my living room, and then you would pick out what hardwood you picked, and then that they would virtually make it for you.
That is
I would use that as this, it's going to be worth it. It's going to look
like a vision board.
Yeah. Right. Now, I realize in some ways it seems like, oh, it's just so temporal. Oh, get over it. But I really needed this small thing.
You need that boost.
Say, what's the end goal? And it's going to be worth it, because this messy part was, I wouldn't say it was driving me nuts. I was just getting worn out by it.
Yes, it is. It is so tiresome. And you have a tough time remembering, why you're doing it. So anything you can do to get fired up is recommended. That's what I would say. Another thing I think is really important, I believe in the power of reflection. I think it was John Dewey who said that children learn by doing, and adults learn by reflecting on what we've done. So I think that there's huge power in that when it comes to being intentional and living and leading by design rather than default. So one of the questions I pose to myself regularly and to encourage my clients to ask themselves is the MOLO question. And by that, I mean asking yourself, what do I want more of? What do I want less of in my life? Focusing on that can help you to make better choices. And that's what it all really boils down to, is making better choices. And then another thing that I think is really important, when you're in the messy middle, you have to choose to lead. Now, by that, I mean that you always have a choice. No, we don't have a choice about the circumstances that we're dealt, but you always have a choice in how you're going to respond to those circumstances. You always do. Now, as a leader, people are looking to you. People are looking at you. People are looking for how you're handling the crisis. And they're going to model their behavior after you. I mean, think about it. If you're on a flight and you have a bunch of turbulence, people are looking at the flight attendants. And if the flight attendants are freaking out, well, guess what?
Not a good sign, right?
Everybody's going to be freaking out. So you want to be the person who is not taking the temperature with a thermometer, but setting the temperature with the thermostat. So you want to be the one to make the choice to lead with grace, to be the strength that people need during these tough times. And I think that's really important.
Can I ask you real quick though? Have you ever had a moment where you want to lead? Like, I want to choose to lead. It could be leading your family in this, circumstance. Yeah. It could be like we're in an unexpected traffic. Right. But that could be it's a reality one, right? It could be something like you said, the airplane. It could be a team, right, that you lead through your work or in your business. And you need to, and you can choose, and you just don't want to. You want to be like the kid goes, like everybody else.
Yeah.
What do you do in that circumstance? I mean, it's denying that you don't feel that way is probably not a good idea, because whenever we deny something, we just go, oh, it doesn't exist, and it always comes back up. So what do you do in that moment?
Well, I think you have to have a strong why. What is your reason? What is your mission, your purpose in this life? I don't know about you, but I don't want to just go through the challenges. I don't want to just muddle through. I don't want to just barely survive. I want to go through and flourish. I want to thrive. We talked about the hurricanes in South Louisiana. And when you talk about Hurricane Ida, well, backing up to earlier in 2021, we had a family member who was really struggling, and we were rallying to support them. And that was a big challenge. And then in August, our daughter had her third baby in 3 years. Yes, do the math. 3 babies, 3 years, 3 C-sections to be specific. And she had a 3-year-old, not yet 2-year-old, and a newborn infant.
Wow.
And within a couple of days, Hurricane Ida slammed into us. So that was a Cat 4, questionable that it was Cat 5 storm that hit, and darn near directly in our area. Our parish, there's no one in our parish, or as you would call them, counties, that didn't have significant damage, and we were the same. And luckily, we came together. Our daughter and her husband were not able to evacuate because she had just gotten home from the hospital. And if she'd have had any complications, we don't even want to go there. It was just not feasible to evacuate. So we all hunkered down together, and thankfully we're all fine. Both of our homes were damaged. And then, meaning my daughter's and ours, and our weekend home was devastated. That it was at the coast in South Louisiana. Just a little bit of stress in my life.
Yeah. And what's interesting is I still remember because Ida came up kind of all of a sudden, right? Even as those of us who weren't in Louisiana, I was watching it. Like all of a sudden this was a storm that was a storm, but all of a sudden it became big, a huge storm. And like within 48 hours, something like that. So, and you posted on Facebook, you were making a roux, you were making gumbo. You were optimistic that, this is going to be a bad storm, but what do we do in South Louisiana? We make a gumbo. And it's so hilarious now you bring it up because, you were, now I'm picturing you crying with the onions and putting the celery or the peppers and the carrots. I'm trying to remember. No, celery. No carrots.
Onion, celery, and bell pepper.
Thank you. Yeah, right. And you already had like 2 out of 3 of those, and now you're the third one about to hit in a way that you really didn't know that it was going to
Yeah.
be that bad. Oh my.
No, and that was before we lost power. So I still had electricity when I was making my room.
That's right.
Yeah, it was literally the most stressful time in my life because as a mama, you're always a mama, and no matter how old your kids get. And so, that was a very, very stressful time. But I knew that I had to hold it together because my family was depending on me. And I had a choice. I absolutely had a choice of whether I was going to sit there and wring my hands in despair or was I going to, pull myself together. And let's go back to those points that we talked about earlier about doubling down on my spiritual life and practices, and that all came into play. And we have a healthy baby, Eleanor, as a result of all of that, and we're still in the process of rebuilding. 9 months later, and we will be for years. I mean, South Louisiana will come back, but it will, it's just going to take a while, infrastructure and all of that. But as a leader, you always have a choice, and you want to be conscious of the fact that people are looking to you for guidance, and they're looking to you for modeling the way. And you don't want. For me personally, I don't want to just get through things. I want to grow through them, and this has been a really challenging, but really time of great growth for many, many people. And, growth doesn't happen in your comfort zone anyway. So I would love to grow, though, without having to go
I know. I was thinking of that. Could we not grow without under such duress and pressure?
Exactly.
I have to admit to myself, when I look back and I think about the biggest growth periods that I've had, particularly personally,
Yes.
but also even professionally, it was under circumstances of lots of stress.
Yes.
And I was like, I'd like to think I'm above it, but I'm not. I'm like every other human being. And until we have those moments of pain, and I say pain, that we get we have to reflect.
Yes.
Why did this happen? And what part do I play? How am I going to respond? And I know for myself that I've pulled upon my strengths that I knew were kind of there, but never had gotten tested to that extent. And but I wasn't gonna voluntarily put myself through the whole process, right? I mean, no one would have. Do you think, by the way, Eleanor, your grandbaby, who was born right before that storm and obviously lived through it, right? And we can
know she didn't name her Ida.
Notice. That's right. That's right. But do you think she might have a personality and kind of a presence of she's the calm in the storm, or she's the joy in the storm?
She is the joy. She is the smiley, sweet baby girl. And I think, it brings tears to my eyes just to think about it, that, and this, Mary, because we're such good friends, but I'm a big believer in keeping your sense of humor throughout it all. And I get that from my mama and my mama's sisters. They were all characters. And we continue to find things to laugh about throughout it all. And that has been something that we get strength from. I think you have to. And another thing too is surrounding yourself with support. I think is really important. Whoever said it's lonely at the top, they weren't kidding, right? So you need to find your people, find that kind of support. And you mentioned earlier, and that is really why I created my Women's Leadership Collective. It's because it is lonely at the top, and you don't have to go through it alone. I created that program because it was literally what I had wanted for so long, but couldn't find. It's like I scratched my own itch by putting that together. And it's a great place for women to come. I call it a combination of group coaching and mastermind group. And we rely on the power of the group to support one another. And it's interesting how they have come together, and they're so very diverse and so very different in different industries and different parts of the country, geographically, and different roles within their organizations. And this was a quote from one of my members who said, Jen, we're all so different, and yet we have so much in common. And I think when you can be around other people who get you, that is a source of strength and support, and they can cheer for you when the chips are down, if you will, and cheer for you when things are going well. So, I think it's really important that we quit trying to do it alone.
Yeah. I so agree. You're saying like it's lonely at the top. Well, it can be lonely in the middle and lonely at the bottom too.
Yes.
Whatever, you say, and I understand that this is really, it's true. And you have a certain level of success at that you look around, and then it becomes like, well, who can I relate to, at this level? And it's not always easy, particularly as female leaders. And
Yes.
yet the importance of seeking out those places.
Mhm.
I know that when you were going through the storm, particularly Hurricane Ida, most recently, you were saying you were right around, you had geographically family.
Yes.
That was, you were surrounding yourselves with each other for the right support and then in that right time.
Absolutely.
And I know that you're a big family gal, so that's kind of always a presence in your life. Well, I think it's so easy though, when you said it's lonely at the top, it's the lonely part. If you're feeling lonely at all, that's just time to seek out
Yes.
one or two or friend. I don't even think you have to have a huge number of people.
No.
A small number.
Yeah, and that makes all the difference in the world. It's just feeling heard and feeling like somebody else gets you. And no, it doesn't have to be a big group, but you do need to be able to you do not have to do it all alone, and you don't have to try to be a superhero by trying to do it alone. Gathering those people around you that can support you, whom you can support too. Because, the more you're able to support others, it comes back to you. It's like a virtuous cycle. So it helps to boost your mood when you feel like you've helped someone else.
Yeah.
And so it's just a win-win situation. And so I really recommend people have that support, whatever it looks like for you.
Yeah. You know what I love? One of the things I love about doing this podcast is I talk to so many gal pals, known and new to me, is that there's already some themes emerging about what these gals do, what to do through this messy middle, or through how to flip the chip. And so some of the things that you said, this is what works for me. I've heard in different forms have worked for some other gals, like focusing on gratitude, like staying grounded in a sense of your faith and who you are in this world. Choosing to lead, making a choice about how you're going to respond, of having a big why, and having others. So I just wanted to reflect that back to you, because it's no wonder it's working, and it's working for other women as well. And I think it's so easy to forget one of those, particularly when you're in the messy middle, because you can keep your eye on and your emotions in this. Well, it's messy. It feels bad. I hate it. And, it does feel that way, but it's not the whole thing. Right. And so I really love that. And so it actually makes me think of, okay, I got to ask this. What happened? Do you know what happened to that boat that was washed up on the shore? I mean, did someone else see it as a great opportunity to purpose it or reuse it, or just say, this is an eyesore, we need to remove it? And
I think it was the latter.
Okay.
Because, in the real world, there are times when we have to say bye-bye to certain things that are no longer serving us.
Uh-huh.
This boat had lived its purpose and was no longer, I think it got hauled off with all the piles of debris. from the storm, but it was done. I would say it in French, but it's foutu, which means it is done. It's no more. It's no more good.
Okay.
And
Versus like c'est la vie.
yes,
That's life.
but and then sometimes you do have to say c'est la vie. That was a big phrase I heard growing up all my life, is like c'est la vie. We can't control those circumstances. We can choose how we respond to them. That was something my mama repeated often growing up. And I think it's true.
Yeah. Going back to living by design versus default. Okay.
Yeah.
So if there was a nail color name that we could use to inspire us to live by design rather than default, Jennifer Ledet, what is the name you would give it?
I would have to say live by design. That would be it. Or I looked at some colors. I've actually used this color. One was Can't Control Me, which was like the CT, what is it, CTRL on your keyboard?
The control key, right?
Yeah, and then another one that I love is Pink Big instead of Think Big, Pink Big. But yeah, I think you have to have fun with it. You have to find fun wherever you can, and keep your sense of adventure and fun and your sense of humor, please.
Mm,
I need it.
yes. And having friends like you, we can keep that sense of humor and fun going.
Oh, I can say the same, Mary. You have helped me through a lot of stuff lately, so thank you.
Well, truth be told, here's a little intel, all right, is to every gal pal listening, which is, so Jennifer and I met when we went to a conference for the National Speakers Association. We had a mutual friend, David, and he had a gathering, and he invited Jennifer, and he invited me, and he invited a bunch of other people. And of course, and we were all going out to dinner. And so we had to get a cab because they didn't have Ubers then. I don't remember. But anyway, we all got into this cab or taxi, and it was you and me and another gal, Rochelle. And we went off, right? And to this restaurant, and we didn't know each other. I mean, I certainly didn't know the two of you.
No.
But man, your humor, I was like, this gal is fun. And so I started bantering back with you, the humor. And of course, you're in a conference with people and you're having you're just kind of in a great positive environment.
Yes.
But that's how we bonded. And that's how we connected, was by humor and lightheartedness. And it does so good for the soul. And I felt like I have found a humor soulmate here.
Absolutely. I'm all about keeping the sense of humor. And, in some of the worst of circumstances in my family, that was always the way we got through it. And, I got that, like I said, from my mama, and she had a very sharp wit. Now, it can also be used against you at times, but she, I credit her with that. And I think my kids kind of got my sense of humor too, because they send me little memes and stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, that is my child.
That's great. That's great. We are out of time for today, Jen. But for those who want to learn more about you, maybe check out your book, Lead Follower, Pass Me the Hot Sauce, which I love that title. I've forgotten it. Or maybe learn more about your Women's Leadership Collective. What's the best way for them to do that?
Well, simply go to jenniferledet.com. And I need to say that that's LEDET.com, jenniferledet.com. Or you could just type in Women's Leadership Collective.com, and that'll get you to the Women's Leadership Collective. But for everything else, just go to my website, jenniferledet.com. I'm also on LinkedIn and Jennifer H. Ledet, and on Twitter as Jennifer H. Ledet, and Jennifer Ledet Speaker on YouTube. So,
all right, great. What I'll do,
I would love to connect with people who have similar interests, and even those who don't, because I love connecting with people.
Well, I highly recommend anyone listening going, I like her. Well, continue to like her and connect with her on social or reach out, because that's one of the benefits. I think one of the things I want to do through this podcast is just be able to connect and let other cool women know about other cool women,
Yeah, I think it's great, Mary. I love your podcast. I love you connecting people. And that's one of your greatest strengths. I have met people through you from you connecting us. And I really, really appreciate that. And anybody who's friends with Mary is somebody that I want to be friends with. So
I like the way you think. Next time, party, you're making the gumbo. All right,
all
gal,
right.
we
Yay.
both got to go. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Mary.
Wow, what a fun conversation with my Cajun friend, Jen. So many simple, practical ideas to flip a challenge into something constructive. In this Flip the Chip segment, I want to highlight one idea that Jen shared that you can do right when a new challenge or chip happens to help soften the blow and redirect your energy. She said, ask yourself, what if this obstacle became a huge opportunity? What would that look like? So first, you have to have the courage to pose the question. I like to say, drama is not your mama. Give yourself a super short pity party and then truly consider, what if this obstacle became a huge opportunity? Second, notice what comes to your heart and mind when you ask the question. Usually it's what you don't want. It's your own restrictions, your own limitations. Well, keep sitting with the question so that the ideas of what's possible enters your thoughts. Some will be simple and some you'll think we're crazy and wild. Consider your biggest dreams and your biggest fears. Somehow this obstacle is speaking directly to them and wants you to break through to a better place. And third, take a small action that makes the most sense. Movement starts to flip your chip into a stronger, smarter, happier you. Hey, and while you're doing this, let the tips of your fingers or toes cheer you on. Put on a new nail color and call it, like Jen said, live by design. And whenever you see your fingers or toes, let them remind you that you've got this. You can choose to take however you're feeling right now and focus on what you can do to change your life. One choice, one nail color at a time. Look forward to being with you next time on the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast. Ready to live and laugh more? Know a friend who could use some of that too? Then subscribe at liveLikeYourNailColor.com or your favorite podcast app and share this episode right now with the person who popped into your mind. Together, let's flip the chip to be stronger, smarter, and happier.